these subjects are highly controversial. That means many people do not believe that these are the result of man or human being, or many people even do not believe that there is climate change. But scientists believe that human activities are having a major impact in climatic factors. So I want you to make your own mindset about this very important but controversial global issue. I'm not going to say there is climate change or not, but I'm going to say what is happening around the earth for last 100 years or so. For example, temperatures have risen 1.3 degree Fahrenheit in the last 100 years. 11 out of the 12 years are among the warmest years since 1850. Similarly, sea levels have gone up by an average of 0.07 inch per year since 1961. These are some of the important data related to the increase in temperature and rise up of the sea level. What is global warming then? It is an overall warming of the planet. That means overall warming of our earth based on average temperature over the entire surface of the earth. Then what is climate change? Climate change includes regional climatic characteristics such as temperature, humidity, rainfall, wind, and severe weather events. Generally, when we talk about climate change, we consider the regional climate. That means climate in a large area than a small area, and generally we consider about 20 to 25 years to say either there is climate change or not. For the short period of time, we generally call it as a weather. Short period is weather and long period would be climate for the particular region. If you see this figure, we can see that after about 1980, starting 1980, we can see that there is a gradual or continuous rise of temperature until today. The temperature is rising continuously since 1980. We can see there was a small rise up during 1940s, and 1940 to 1980 again the temperature was kind of constant, though there was some changes. But after 1980s there is a consistent change throughout the years. What is happening in the United States then? The same thing after about 1980s. If you see before 1980s, there are some changes, but it's not consistent. But after 1980s, we can see that mostly the temperature is going up. There is a big fluctuation every year, but overall we can see that the temperature is kind of rising after 1980s even in this country. We recently published one paper in the Journal of Soil and Water Conservation, and the title of the paper was Climate Change Effect on Winter Wheat Yields in the US Great Plains. I want to show you some data from this paper that we published. We analyzed the data from 6 states including Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota and North Dakota, and we consider 1901 to 1930 the first bar, then the second bar would be 1911 to 1940, third bar will be 1921 to 1950, and it goes continuously until 2016. If you see this data, all the states, I mean Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska and Dakotas, all the states, you can see the temperature is a little bit rising for last many years. You can see the temperature is rising all the way. This one, this one, this one. The clear difference is rise in temperature is more in the northern states as compared to the southern states. As you go north and north, the temperature is rising more and more. In other words, these are the cooler regions as compared to these are, I mean northern parts are cooler than the southern parts, and the rise of temperature or rise in temperature is more significant or more prominent in the cooler states as compared to the warmer states. Overall, the temperature in all states are rising for last 100 years. You can see clearly temperature are rising. Then we compare the temperature between 1951 to 2016. We can see in the north central Texas, in the average temperature of 1951 to 1980 was 18 degrees Celsius, while 2000 to 2016 was 18.6 degrees Celsius. That was the average. And for all the states, you can see that the temperature during 1950s was lower as compared to the temperature during or after 2000. And you can see again that the northern states, especially Dakotas, South Dakota and North Dakota, we can see that the temperature change is bigger as compared to in Texas and Oklahoma cities. 6.9 to 7.8, almost 1 degree Celsius. 4.2 to 5.2, 1 degree Celsius. But here 18 to 18.6, kind of half degree Celsius. So the idea is the temperature is rising, and the rise in temperature is more significant or more prominent in the northern states as compared to the southern states, or more prominent in the cooler areas as compared to the warmer areas. And this is happening all around the world. Temperature change in the last 50 years. We can see from here about 0 degrees Celsius here. The yellow color represents the slight rise in temperature, about 0.2 to 0.5. Then another label, this one, it tells us that the temperature rise up between 0.5 to 1 degree Celsius. And this one, another color, you can see here, it tells us that the temperature rise up from 1 degree to 2 degrees Celsius. So this one is more common throughout the world, especially in Africa, Asia, some parts of North America and some part of South America. And we can still see 2 to 4 degrees Celsius rise up in some northern hemispheres. This is the US map where we can see the change in temperature starting 1900. The last one, the most colorful one, red color, that represents about 1.5 degree Fahrenheit rise in temperature, these areas. And similarly, other color represents 1 to 1.5 degree rise in temperature, these areas. 0.5 to 1 degree rise in temperature, the third label from here. You can see this one, these areas. And this one is 0.0 to 0.5 degree rise in temperature. So in most part of the country, we can see that there is the rise in temperature. Some parts have higher rise, some parts have lower rise, but everywhere there is the rise in temperature. The data is clear that the world is getting warmer. The question is whether you and I are the main reasons or not. Again, many people believe that this is the result of human activities, and many people do not believe that human activities is responsible for the climate change. Or, I already told you, many people even do not believe that there is climate change. That's why I ask you to make your own understanding about the climate change. Greenhouse effect. There are some important greenhouse gases that includes carbon dioxide, methane, CFC, chlorofluorocarbon, ozone, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. What happens is, here is the sun. Sun is giving energy to the earth in the form of heat and light. So especially when these rays, sunlight, strikes to the earth's surface, you can see big portion is coming, small portion is going out. That means there is not the balance. If the same amount that is coming to the earth is going out of earth, then there will be the balance. There is no change. But what is happening is more energy in the form of heat and light is coming to the earth and less energy is going back from the earth. So that means earth is working as a greenhouse that traps the heat from the sun. Because of that, the earth is getting warmer and warmer, and it is because our atmosphere has all kinds of these gases: carbon dioxide, methane, CFC, ozone, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. And these gases are increasing in our atmosphere, and they are blocking these sun's energy to go back to the space. That's why more energy is here, and these gases, they are creating a layer. That layer blocks the energy to go back to the space. That means these energy are coming to the earth, but from the earth they are not going back to the space on the same amount, and that creates the greenhouse gas effect. And these all the gases are increasing year by year. So we can easily imagine that the effect is also increasing year by year. I mean the greenhouse effect. Human activities, we are using so many fossil fuels to produce fertilizers and to produce other kind of industry materials. We have so many vehicles around, there is firing, and we are producing crops in our field. When we grow the rice crop in this kind of environment that needs a lot of water, the flooding water, what happens is there will be the depletion of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen, microorganisms that break down the plant materials, I mean the microorganisms that help in decomposition, they produce methane. Methane is one of the most important greenhouse gas, I told you here. And this kind of flooded rice, it produces about 11% of total methane produced by the agriculture sector. Here is the data from Mauna Loa. It is a part of Hawaii, and if you see the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it is always increasing. See this data. If you see in 1960, the concentration was below 320 parts per million. So this is the y-axis. This is the concentration of the carbon dioxide in parts per million, while the x-axis is the years starting 1960 to 2020. And if you see the data, all the years from 1960, the concentration of carbon dioxide in Mauna Loa area is always increasing. And again, the carbon dioxide is important greenhouse gas. What is the concentration of carbon dioxide around the world today in the atmosphere? The old average is about 412. But if you see this area, the concentration is probably more than 12, and it is always increasing. 2014 global carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuel combustion and some industrial processes. In 2014, different countries were producing different amounts of greenhouse gases, and China was contributing about 30% of CO2 emission. CO2 emission in China was 30% in 2014, and after China there was US 15%, EU whole region, European Union 9%, India 7%, Russia 5%, Japan 4%, and other countries, all other countries 30%. China was the leading country producing a lot of CO2 in 2014. China is not leading only in population but leading in so many other things, including emission of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide emissions per capita. Now you can see the US as a leading country. This is because here you can see China is the leading country, but here US is the leading country because China has a lot of population, and this is the total emission. So in total, China is leading, but per capita, per person, this is the per person, because our population here is less than in China. much less than in China. Because of that, the CO2 emission per capita is higher in United States than in China. China goes here. They are producing higher amounts of CO2 than any other countries. That is true. But if we convert this data per person, they are not the leading country as compared to many other countries. They are producing highest amount, but per person the amount would be lower as compared to other countries because their population is super high. They are highly populated country. And after US, there is Australia, Canada, Netherlands, Japan, Germany, and China. And there are some other countries. Now this figure shows the difference between the high income countries and low income countries. So these are the kind of high income countries are here, and the emission is also high, while the low income countries, you can see here, and low income countries have low emission as compared to the high income countries. Global emissions. Europe was not too high. If you see this figure, whole Europe was only 9% in 2014 CO2. This is all kind of emissions, but Europe still is kind of constant since 1990 to 2012, not increasing. Asia increasing too much. Again, China, India, they are the leading countries in greenhouse gas emission as well. Not only in population, not only in food production, not only in industrial development, but also in greenhouse gas emissions. China and India are leading whole Asian region. US, not a big change. 1990, 2012, almost same. Canada, North America, almost constant. Then after that, there is Latin America, Caribbean countries, a little bit increase. Australia and Oceania, a little bit increase. Africa, almost very consistent. But over the years starting 1990 to 2012, Asia increased significantly, while other parts of the world are not increasing too much, but at the same time they are not decreasing as well. They are still producing a lot of greenhouse gases. United States, which gas is the number one? Y-axis is the emissions in metric tons, while the x-axis is the years. Carbon dioxide is the number one. Methane is the second one. Then the third one is the nitrous oxide, and the fourth one or the last one is other gases. So these three are the major gases in this country that contributes to the climate change. Number one is the carbon dioxide, number two is methane, and number three is the nitrous oxide. Let's see this figure by sector. Which sector contributes how much? Agriculture contributes about 13.5% global greenhouse gas emissions. Forestry 17%, waste and wastewater about 3%. Energy supply is the major one that contributes about 26% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation, I show you a lot of vehicles, they contribute about 13%, and other residential areas they contribute about 8%, and the industry contributes about 19%. So all these emissions, they again include these gases: carbon dioxide, methane, CFC, chlorofluorocarbon, ozone, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. These are the major greenhouse gases. Agriculture produce about 14%. Exact number is 13.5% greenhouse gases. Total greenhouse gas emissions by economic sector in US: transportation 28%, electricity 27%, industry 22%, commercial and residential 12%, and agriculture 10%. If you see the difference, as a whole in the world, agriculture contributes about 14%, and agriculture contributes about 10% in the United States. So there is a little bit different between old average and US average. Globally, the agriculture sector contributes about 14% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. We talked about that. Nitrous oxide from the fertilizers. We use a lot of fertilizers, and during the production of fertilizers, nitrous oxide is one of the major gases that fertilizer industry or fertilizer plants they emit. So nitrous oxide from the fertilizers and methane from the rice fields and cows. I talk about the rice field because producers in rice growing areas, they use a lot of water, and rice need flooded water for the most part of its life cycle. And when we grow rice, there will be the depletion of oxygen inside the water. In the absence of oxygen, microorganisms that break down the plant materials, that means microorganisms that help in decomposition, they produce a lot of methane. And about the cows, how cows contributes to the methane production. To understand why cows produce methane, it is important to know a bit more about how they work. Cow, goats, sheep, and several other animals belong to a class of animals called ruminants. Ruminants have 4 stomachs and digest their food in their stomachs instead of in their intestines. Human beings, we digest our food in intestines, but these animals like cows, goats, sheep, and several other animals, they digest food in the stomach. And we have to understand that the stomachs are filled of or full of bacteria that helps in digestion. But these bacteria do not help only in digestion, they also produce methane gas. So production of cows is also responsible or related to the emission of gases such as methane gas. And the data shows that a single cow or one cow can produce 70 to 120 kilogram methane per year. That means one cow can produce 70 to 120 kilogram of methane per year. And in this world, there are about 1.5 billion cattle. 1.5 billion cattle. So if one cow can produce about 70 to 120 kilogram, you can convert the data to how much 1.5 billion cattle produce methane gas. Then you'll realize either rice field or cows, they are contributing to the global greenhouse emission or not. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture.